For the remainder of your life, ladies and gentlemen, there is a truth, a powerful, burning truth that separates those rise from those who remain stagnant. For the remainder, it is this: the world does not move for good intentions or soft suggestions, it moves for conviction. Too often, people wait for the world to validate their ideas before they commit to them. But the truth is, no idea has ever changed anything without the fire of belief behind it. For the remainder of your life, you could have the most brilliant vision, the most groundbreaking concept, but if you don't believe in it with everything you've got, it's just a whisper lost in the noise. For the remainder of your life, conviction is what sharpens that whisper into a commanding voice that people can't ignore. You must carry that energy, that unshakable faith, for the remainder of your life, even when no one's listening, especially when no one's listening. An idea without belief has no weight. It drifts unnoticed, unlived. But belief is what anchors an idea in reality. It gives it shape, direction, and momentum. When you believe in something so deeply that it becomes a part of who you are, for the remainder of life, you move differently. You speak with power, you act with clarity, and your energy becomes contagious. That's when people start to pay attention. Not because your idea suddenly changed, but because your belief became undeniable. And people are drawn not to the idea itself, but to the strength of your certainty. To believe before others do is to step into a storm with no map and walk like you own the sky. You have to trust what you see in your mind than what others see in front of them. They'll doubt, they'll question, and some will mock. Let them. That's part of the process. Their disbelief is not your burden. In fact, it's a signal that you're ahead. Most people can't see what's possible until someone like you forces them to. And you do that by standing tall in your belief when every reason tells you sit down. Understand that the world takes time to catch up. It always does. No one believed in the first light bulb, the first flight, or the first personal computer. Every revolutionary idea starts in isolation, surrounded by doubt. But it's not the doubt that matters. It's the one who refuses to be moved by it. That refusal, that stubborn belief is what builds empires. It's what writes history. For the remainder of your life, you wait for the world's approval, be waiting forever. But if you act on belief, the world eventually follows. For the remainder of your life, this is why forcing yourself to believe is not delusion. It's disciplining your mind to see what doesn't yet exist and to hold that vision like it's already real. It's the willingness to bet on yourself when no one else is betting at all. And yes, it's uncomfortable. It's lonely. But it's necessary for the real life, because once your belief is strong enough, it becomes louder than the world's silence. And that's when momentum begins. For the remainder of your life, that's when doors open, not because the world changed, but because you did. So if your dream feels invisible, right, belief is not something that falls into your lap. It does not arrive gift wrapped by circumstance or handed over by a mentor. It is not inherited from your parents or granted by your environment. You must forget yourself through effort, repetition, and sheer will. You must stand in front of the mirror and day after day and declare who you are becoming, even when there is no evidence to support it. This is not about waiting for the perfect moment or the right conditions. This is about deciding here and now that belief will be built regardless of what stands in your way. Every ounce of belief you gain will come at a cost. You will wrestle with doubt in the early hours when your vision feels fragile. You will question yourself when your plans collapse or when others shake their heads. But that is precisely the battleground where belief is formed. Each doubt you face is not a sign to stop. It's a brick. It's material. For the remainder of your life, it's the very thing you use to construct your inner foundation. You don't run from uncertainty. You use it. You stack it, shape it, and build on top of it until your mind becomes a fortress that nothing can shake. This process is slow, uncomfortable, and often invisible. You might feel foolish telling yourself you'll succeed when there's no proof. But belief is not based on proof. It creates it. Your mind, if left unchecked, will default to fear and hesitation. So you must train it like a muscle. You speak life into your vision. You imagine the results before they exist. You walk into the day carrying the weight of your future confidence. No one else will carry it for you. This is a personal assignment, and no one can complete it but you. Further, understand that every time you choose belief over doubt, you're reinforcing your internal foundation. You're signaling to yourself that you are worth trusting. For the remainder of your life, the more you act as if your vision is inevitable, the more your mind begins to accept that as reality. The world around you may remain the same at first, but internally, you're evolving. And soon, that internal change becomes visible through your actions, your presence, and your persistence. For the remainder of your life, the battle is always won internally before it's ever recognized externally. Those who wait for belief to arrive naturally will never start. They will hesitate forever, mistaking comfort for readiness. But if you are serious about building something great, must force. For the remainder of life, there is a stage in every journey where the applause is silent and the seats are empty. It's the quiet chapter, the one where your efforts go unnoticed and your progress feels invisible. This is the part that breaks most people, not because they're incapable, but because they expected recognition too soon. You must be willing to clap for yourself in those empty rooms. You must become your own source of motivation, your own encouragement, for the remainder of your life, your own standing ovation. Because if you can't find the strength to celebrate your growth when no one is watching, you'll never survive when the pressure of attention finally arrives. Most people wait for the world to validate them before they take themselves seriously. They wait for praise, permission, or external confirmation before they feel worthy. But growth doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows, in the lonely hours, for the remainder of your life, in the small wins that only you know about. Every step you take without recognition is a declaration. I believe this matters, even if no one sees it yet. That kind of self-belief is rare and it's powerful, because once you master the ability to move without applause, you become unstoppable. There's a discipline required in showing up daily for a dream that hasn't materialized yet. You have to remind yourself why you started. You have to find meaning in the process, not the result. You have to be okay with walking roads that no one understands because the vision wasn't given to them. It was given to you. And while others may call it delusion, you'll know the truth in its preparation. Every action you take in silence builds your capacity to lead in volume. Every unnoticed moment sharpens the edge of your future greatness. For the remainder of your life, don't underestimate the value of invisible progress. Just because no one acknowledges it doesn't mean it's not real. In fact, the most important transformations often happen when no one's watching. That's when you develop resilience, character, and clarity. That's when you learn to keep going for the remainder of your life, not for the reward, but for the principle. You keep going because you know what it means. For the remainder of your life, you keep going because you refuse to let the words you speak to yourself are the blueprint of your future. Every time you tell yourself, I will succeed, you are laying another brick in the foundation of that future. At first, those words might feel hollow. You might not believe them. They may clash with your current reality, but repetition is not about immediate truth. It's about eventual transformation. The mind, over time, begins to accept what it hears most often. Speak enough confidence into yourself, for your life, and your behavior will begin to align. You start to move like someone who expects success, not as a wish, but as a certainty of your life. This is not a blind optimism or pretending everything is perfect. It's about training your mind to work for you instead of against you. Most people let their thoughts run wild, repeating fear, doubt, and limitation on autopilot. But if you flip the script, if you make success your default narrative, you change the way you perceive challenges. Suddenly, obstacles become part of the process, not signs to quit. Your language shapes your mindset, and your mindset shapes your response to the world. What you repeat becomes not only your belief, it becomes your instinct. In the beginning, your words will feel like lies. You'll say, I'm capable. While battling insecurity, you'll say, I'm going to win. While nothing in your life looks like victory, that's normal. That's how it starts. But you keep going. You keep repeating, for not for how you feel now, but for who you're becoming. Eventually, those declarations won't feel forced. They'll feel natural. And once they feel natural, for the remainder of life, you'll begin acting in ways that reflect them. You'll take more risks, speak with more confidence, and stop waiting for permission. The people who succeed long term are not always the most talented or the most lucky. They are often the ones who've mastered the art of internal repetition. While others fed themselves excuses, they fed themselves vision. While others questioned their worth, they reinforced it daily. That repetition becomes identity. And once something becomes identity, it becomes habit. You no longer have to convince yourself. You simply, the strength of your belief determines the strength of your actions. You can have the grandest vision, the most ambitious goals, and the most detailed plans, but if your belief in yourself is weak, all of that will remain untouched. A starving belief system leads to hesitation. You'll second, guess your decisions, delay your actions, and talk yourself out of taking the very steps that could change your life. It's not that the dream is too big, it's that your internal conviction is too small. Without strong belief, even simple actions feel heavy. You shrink opportunities, you avoid risks, you play small not because you want to, but because you don't trust your ability to handle more. But when belief is strong, everything changes. Your energy shifts, your posture changes, you approach challenges with a sense of certainty that doesn't come from proof, but from purpose. You move faster, speak clearer, and take actions others avoid. Not because you're fearless, but because you've made a decision to trust in yourself before the world gives you permission. That trust makes you resourceful. It makes you bold. And most importantly, it keeps you moving when others stop. The obstacles that once looked like giants now look like puzzles waiting to be solved. It's easy to assume that people with bold actions are simply braver, more talented, or more experienced. But the truth is, their belief is what's doing the work. They believe they deserve more, so they pursue more. They believe they'll figure it out, so they take the leap. They believe they're built for the struggle, so they endure what others can't. Strong belief acts like fuel. It doesn't remove difficulty, but it powers you through it. It sharpens your focus, strengthens your resolve, and pushes you forward when the outcome is still unclear. That's why protecting your belief is non-negotiable. You must guard it from doubt, from distraction, from negativity. You must speak life into it every single day. Build it through action, reinforce it through progress, and defend it through discipline. Don't wait for someone else to convince you that your dream is worth chasing. That responsibility is yours. You don't need a cheerleader, you need a backbone. You need to become the kind of person who wakes up and acts, even when the results haven't shown up yet, especially then. Because in the end, the size of your dream doesn't matter nearly as much as the strength of your belief. A massive dream paired with weak belief will always crumble under pressure. But even a small goal, if pursued with unwavering belief, can grow into something extraordinary. Your results will always match your level of conviction. So feed your belief, train it, strengthen it. You will be ignored and it will sting. You'll speak with conviction and no one will listen. You'll share your dreams and people will nod politely, but never take you seriously. This is where most people stop, right at the doorstep of their breakthrough. They misread silence as rejection, when in truth, it is simply the first stage of the test. Being ignored is not a verdict, it's a challenge. It's the world asking, how bad do you really want this? And your answer cannot come in words. It must come in persistence. Then comes the doubt. People will question your choices, your timing, your ability, and even your sanity. They'll point out your lack of results, your unconventional methods, your inexperience. Not because they're cruel, though some might be, but because they don't see what you see, and that's the point. The vision was given to you, not to them. Their doubt is not a warning. It's confirmation that you're walking a path they cannot understand. It's another layer of the test, designed to reveal whether your belief can withstand the absence of support. After that, if you keep going, you will be laughed at. They'll mock your ambition. They'll joke about your failures. They'll dismiss your efforts as naive or foolish. But here's the secret: no one laughs at something they believe is impossible. They laugh because a part of them sees that you just might pull it off, and that terrifies them. Your courage exposes their comfort. Your discipline shames their excuses. So they laugh not to hurt you, but to protect themselves. Don't take it personally. Take it as proof that your presence is starting to disrupt the status quo. This is the fire that separates the few from the many. Most will retreat. They'll lower their standards to avoid ridicule. They'll hide their dreams to escape judgment. But those who pass the test, those who stay the course, earn something priceless: credibility. The world might ignore you at first, but it cannot ignore results. Doubt fades in the presence of progress. Laughter turns into silence, and then silence turns into curiosity. Eventually, the same people who questioned you will ask how you did it, but they will only ask if you endure long enough to show them. So understand this: being ignored, doubted, and laughed at is not failure. It is the gateway. It is the cost of entrance into a life that few will ever experience. Most never get past the noise. But if you do, if you hold your belief through the mockery, the silence, the misunderstanding, you become undeniable. You don't have to argue. You don't have to convince. You simply keep moving until your presence demands respect. That's how you pass the test. Not with explanation, but with endurance. The conversation you have with yourself every day shapes the world you walk through. If your inner dialogue is full of fear, hesitation, and self-doubt, then that is exactly what your life will reflect. You'll see obstacles where others see opportunities. You'll talk yourself out of chances before they even appear. For the remainder of life, you won't notice open doors because your mind will be too busy expecting rejection. On the other hand, when you declare victory inside, when your thoughts are centered around capability, confidence, and resilience, the world responds differently. You begin to notice possibilities. You carry yourself with energy that attracts attention and opportunity. Your internal language sets the tone for your external behavior. A person who constantly thinks, "I'm not ready, I'll probably fail," will unconsciously act in ways that match those thoughts. They'll speak softly, avoid risk, and shrink when it's time to stand tall. But someone who tells themselves, "I can figure this out," or "I belong in the room," will act with assurance. They'll show up with a presence that demands respect, not because they have all the answers, but because they've already won the inner battle. For that inner victory reflects in their tone, their body language, and the decisions they make under pressure. Many people try to change their circumstance without first changing their thinking. They switch jobs, relocate, try new routines, or seek new relationships, all in search of a different outcome. But if the internal narrative remains negative, nothing on the outside can truly shift. You'll keep attracting the same setbacks, the same limitations, and the same frustrations because the filter you're viewing life through hasn't changed. Real transformation starts from within. When your thoughts evolve, so does your perception. And when perception shifts, actions naturally follow, and actions are what shape your reality. For the remainder of your life, the power of inner speech is that it's always within your control. You don't need permission to start talking to yourself differently. You can choose right now to stop rehearsing failure in your mind and start rehearsing success. You can visualize yourself winning, navigating challenges, and growing through adversity. For the remainder of life, this isn't just motivational fluff. It's mental conditioning. Athletes, leaders do it. Champions of every kind do it. They script their internal world to prepare for the external one. And the more they do it, the more their outer results begin to match their inner confidence. So if you want to change your life, don't start with your schedule. Start with your self-talk. Listen to how you speak to yourself when no one's around. For catch the language of limitation and replace it with the language of leadership. You won't get it perfect right away. But with repetition, you'll notice the shift. You'll start walking into situations with expectation instead of anxiety. You'll make decisions with strength instead of hesitation. For the remainder of life, the world bends to the will of the one who already believes they've won. And that belief starts with a sentence you choose to say again and again. Of your life, one of the most powerful shifts you can make in your life is to begin acting like the person who already has what you want. This isn't pretending. It's alignment. It's about stepping into the mindset, habits, and energy of the future version of you before the results show up. If the person you want to become is confident, decisive, and focused, for the remainder of your life, they must begin to walk, speak, and think in those ways now. The mind is incredibly responsive to repetition and identity. For the remainder of your life, it doesn't wait for reality to catch up. It begins to reflect what you consistently feed it. When you carry yourself like someone who already belongs in the place you want to reach, your actions start to create the outcomes that match that belief. This is not about faking success or posturing for validation. It's about embodying a standard. If you want to be wealthy, ask how a financially free person would make decisions. If you want to be disciplined, behave like someone who never negotiates with laziness. For the remainder of life, if you want to be respected, carry yourself with the self-respect you're seeking from others. By doing this, for the remainder of your life, you're not lying to yourself. You're reminding yourself that growth is not about waiting to become someone new. It's about stepping into that identity through daily choices for the remainder of your life. You lead your life from the inside out, not the other way around. When you think and act like the person you aim to be, for the remainder of life, your environment and opportunities begin to respond to you differently. People sense certainty. They are drawn to those who operate with a sense of purpose and clarity. You won't have to convince others of your worth. They'll feel it in how you show up. The way you speak will carry more conviction. The way you move will have more intention, and that shift in energy makes room for new results. You're no longer reacting to life from a place of lack. You're creating it from a place of belief. It's important to understand that you don't need results to justify this behavior. In fact, the results often lag behind the identity. You may not have the title, the income for the remainder of your life, the body, or the recognition yet, but the mindset that must come first. Think of it like a thermostat. If you keep setting the temperature to the level of the person you want to become of your life, eventually your hates and outcomes will rise to meet it. If you keep adjusting your behavior to match your current circumstances, you stay stuck in the same loop. The remainder life, identity drives consistency, and consistency drives transformation. So decide who you are becoming and then move accordingly. Ask yourself daily, how would that version of me handle this? And then act on the answer. Most people wait for evidence before they act. They want proof before they commit. They want guarantees before they risk. But the truth is, the evidence doesn't come first. The belief does. Action doesn't follow confirmation. It creates it. If you wait for things to be certain, for conditions to be perfect, for signs that you'll succeed, you'll be stuck at the starting line forever. Success doesn't show up and then convince you to move. You move, and that movement begins to shape your success. For the remainder of your life, it's a reversal of how most people think, and that's why most people stay exactly where they are, remainder of life. And there is a powerful shift that happens when you take action as if your vision is already a reality. Not because you're being delusional, but because you understand that belief is a force that bends the future toward you. When you walk, talk, and act like someone who knows it's just a matter of time, you radiate a different energy. You become a magnet for the people, opportunities, and momentum that align with your path. People trust those who trust themselves. For the remainder of life, the world responds to certainty. And you don't need proof to be certain. You need courage. Acting in advance of evidence is not about faking it. It's about faith in motion. For the remainder of life, it's about placing a bet on yourself that you will rise to meet the challenge, even if you don't yet have the results to show for it. When you act from belief, you give life to your vision. Each step becomes proof that you're committed. And the more you move, the more your confidence builds. Confidence doesn't fall from the sky. For the remainder of life, it grows through repeated decisions to keep moving despite uncertainty. That's what separates those who lead from those who wait. For the remainder of your life, if you any look at who has accomplished extraordinary, you'll find a moment where they moved without a map. They started the business without knowing if it would succeed. They wrote the book before they had readers. They showed up before anyone invited them. And in doing so, they created the very evidence others now admire. For the remainder of your life, they didn't have it first. They became it first. Evidence is a byproduct of belief in action. It doesn't create momentum. It confirms it. And that confirmation only comes to those who dare to start without it. So don't wait for signs. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for certainty to appear out of nowhere. Create it, build it, move forward like it's already yours. Speak it's done. Plan like it's coming. Act like success is inevitable, because in many ways, that's what makes it so. Reality always follows belief, not the other way around. If you trust in that order and keep showing up, the evidence will arrive, just not before you do. For the remainder of life, every single day, you're faced with a decision that seems small on the surface, but holds the power to define your entire life. Will you believe in your vision, or will you bow to your fears? This choice doesn't appear once in a while. It presents itself constantly in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when the doubts creep in, when the pressure builds. It's the decision you make when you decide to keep going or give up, to speak up or stay silent, to take the next step or retreat into comfort. And each time you choose, you're either writing a story of courage or one of hesitation. Fear is clever. It disguises itself as logic, as caution, as responsibility. It tells you to wait, to prepare more, to protect yourself from disappointment. It sounds reasonable. But underneath, it's a thief. It steals your potential quietly, one unmade decision at a time. It doesn't need to knock you down. It just needs to keep you still. If you let it, fear will write your story with invisible ink, where dreams fade into forgotten thoughts and goals become regrets you rarely speak of. That's the reality for many. Not because they weren't capable, but because they bowed too many times. Your vision, on the other hand, requires you to stand up even when your knees shake. It demands boldness, not perfection. The remainder of your life, it won't always feel safe, and it certainly won't always feel convenient, but it will always be honest. For your vision calls you to something higher. It asks you to trust in what you can't yet see, and that trust isn't built in the big, public moments. It's built in the small, quiet ones where you act in alignment with your future, even when your present doesn't yet reflect it. Every act of belief, no matter how small, is a strike against fear. The truth is, no one escapes the decision. No matter how talented, smart, or experienced you are, fear will knock. The question is, will you answer it, or will you move forward anyway? For the remainder of your life, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the refusal to surrender to it. You don't need to feel brave to be brave. You just need to act in favor of your vision more often than you act in favor of your doubt. And over time, those daily decisions compound into identity. For the remainder of life, you either become the person who stood firm or the one who stepped back. So when the day feels heavy and the doubts feel louder than your dreams, remember that the decision is still yours. Your vision can't push itself forward. Only you can. And every time you choose to believe, even if it's just a little more than you did yesterday, you take back control of the pen. You start writing a story that reflects your potential instead of your fear. For the remainder of your life, it's not about being fearless, it's about being faithful to the vision, to the process, and most of all, to yourself. For the remainder of leadership has never been about titles or positions. It doesn't come from being appointed, elected, or recognized. True leadership starts long before any of that. It begins with internal certainty. When someone is sure of who they are and what they stand for, they don't need permission to lead. They don't wait for approval, and they certainly don't wait for a crowd. They move with purpose, and that purpose alone draws attention. People follow conviction, not credentials. They're pulled toward anyone who moves forward with clarity, because deep down, everyone wants to feel that kind of certainty. Most people misunderstand leadership for the remainder of your life. They think it begins when others start listening, but that's not the truth. It begins when you start listening to yourself, when you stop doubting your direction and commit to walking it regardless of who joins you. That self-trust is rare, and because it's rare, it's powerful. It doesn't matter if you're standing in front of thousands or walking alone down an empty street. If your belief is real, it carries weight. That weight is felt. It changes the atmosphere around you, and eventually people begin to notice not just what you do, but how you carry yourself. People are always watching, even if they don't say a word. They watch how you handle pressure, how you respond to failure, how you keep going when no one else would. And when they see consistency, when they see fire that doesn't burn out, they begin to believe in you, not because you asked them to, but because your example gave them something to believe in. The crowd doesn't lead the fire. The fire leads the crowd, and the fire comes from belief. Deep, unwavering belief in your mission, your values, and your direction. For the remainder of life, there is something magnetic about someone who knows where they're going. It makes people want to walk beside them, to learn from them, to draw strength from their certainty. You don't need to speak loudly, dominate conversations, or demand attention. All you need is to move with conviction. When people feel your inner fire, they remember you. For they may not say it aloud, but they begin to think there's something different about them. That difference isn't luck or charisma. It's alignment. It's belief made visible through consistent action. So never think you need a position to lead. You don't need followers to have influence. You need to be rooted in something real for the remainder of your life. You need to walk with belief so steady that it inspires belief in others. That's how movements begin. That's how ideas spread. That's how leaders are born, not from applause. For belief is often mistaken for wishful thinking, a soft hope that maybe someday things will work out. But real belief is not fragile. It's forceful. It doesn't simply sit and wait for reality to improve. It pushes against it. It confronts it. It declares what will happen long before there's any visible proof. Your life, that kind of belief isn't passive, it's magnetic. It draws things in. It pulls circumstances, people, and opportunities toward the person who refuses to let go of their vision. When belief is sustained long enough, it begins to shape the world around it. What once looked impossible starts to shift because belief refuses to back down. People often wonder how some individuals seem to bend reality in their favor. They assume it's luck, timing, or some external advantage. But the real explanation is often invisible egg for the remainder of a mindset. Relentless belief sends a signal. It tells the world, this is going to happen, whether you cooperate or not. And when that message is repeated through action, discipline, and consistency, the environment begins to respond. Doors open. Resources appear. Support shows up, not immediately and not all at once, but eventually. Reality bends not because it's easy, but because belief stood long enough for the shift to occur. What most people call resilience is actually belief in motion. It's the refusal to quit when quitting seems logical. It's continuing to show up after rejection, disappointment, and failure. That kind of belief is not loud or dramatic. It's quiet and stubborn. It shows up in the late nights, the early mornings for the remainder of life, the countless times you choose progress over comfort. And while others are watching to see if it's working, you're too busy building to care for the remainder of your life, because the moment you decide that you're not stopping, you take control of your direction. You stop being at the mercy of results and start influencing them. There's a turning point in every journey where belief meets resistance. That's when most people give up, when things don't move fast enough, when results are slow, when no one claps. But the few who persist through that silence are the ones who begin to notice the subtle changes. A small opportunity, a new connection, a shift in momentum. These are the early signs that reality is starting to respond, not because it suddenly decided to support you, but because your belief never gave it another option. You wore it down. You proved you were serious. So if you feel like nothing is changing, if the results are still out of reach, don't double down. Keep showing up. Keep believing, because belief, when held long enough, turns pressure into progress. It's not magic. It's not some mystical force. It's the compound effect of faith, grit, and action over time. For the remainder, that's how you bend reality, not all at once, but piece by refusing to stop until the world begins to reflect what you've already decided within.